Hey, it's Shoeless Rob here with another build for Gemma Frostfire. This time we're going to pull out the hammers. It is hammer time. Despite popular belief, she can actually do some pretty good melee damage, so we're going to make an elemental warrior rather than the normal erosion build that you see with berserkers. So first, we'll show some gameplay here. And since Whirlwind is not an elemental skill, we'll need to build up her little fusion bar with our curse. So we'll build up the fusion bar, and with gameplay, we're just going to hit all three of our skills every time they refresh. We'll get that curse going. We'll get the mark going. Mark our targets with that and get our stone skin going as often as we can since we're up in the action. But we'll be freezing a lot of enemies, and a lot of our skills that we'll get into are going to deal some extra damage based around frost and fire. Of course, we're using Gemma Frostfire. So it's all going to relate around the freezes, and that's why you're not going to see these massive mega one-hit hits, because they're all dealing around extra damage from the freezes. And as you can see, we're pretty much walking through the map. This is tier 4 in the forge. So it's taken out the enemies relatively easily here. And you can just walk back through the map and grab all your loot when you're done. It's a long walk back when you're done because you just blaze through everything. We'll get some boss gameplay in now. I don't want to bore you with the whole level, so we'll show you some boss gameplay. Now with the boss, it's real important to make sure you keep your fusion bar up, keep that curse on him, keep that mark on him, and make sure that you're using all your skills on the boss. And just kind of confuse him, get behind him all the time, and you're just going to see his life bar just drop like a rock. Which is something that Gemma normally has trouble with her spell builds. This will work on watch bosses as well because it doesn't use any enemies or anything like that. So when it comes to the watch bosses, same thing. Get them lowered with your curse. Get that extra buff on with Mark for the double damage, and go to town with Whirlwind, just avoiding being in front of them. So let's get into the build and how it's done. I'm going to break it down piece by piece, so stick around as long as you'd like. We're going to go through skills, talent trees, packs, hero traits, everything for you guys. So we'll start out with our skills. And our main skill is going to be Whirlwind, supported by a lot of extra damage. Whirlwind is a channeling skill that you can move around while you channel, and then every 5 hits, it deals a little extra AoE burst for some extra damage there. So that's how Whirlwind works. We all know how our Whirlwind works. We've got on there critical strike of 200+%, so that we're dealing crits all the time. Crits are going to be important to our nodes. Next strike is dealing with the special ability of Whirlwind. When he gets those 5 stacks and kind of explodes, it's going to give us some powers on that. So that's good. We've got knockback, just to kind of keep them off of us, but that also boosts damage. We've also got our precise strike. It's going to give us damage as well. And lastly, we've got guard, which is going to give us a barrier and damage, so that's some survivability. You can substitute crit damage for one of those. Straight up potion with medical emergency and cooldown reduction to use it as often as you can. Pretty straightforward on that one. The next one is pretty important, and what we're doing on the next one is stacking a lot of Gemma's ability to interchange fire and ice. Because it's an elemental boost, it uses her fire and her ice. There's 11% reduction there, and that becomes 22%. So then we're also adding to that with concentration 34%, which becomes 68%, plus 22% is 90. And then we're adding on our curse modifier in green there, and that's another 35% of that, which brings us to about 120% total. And lastly, we're putting some area of effect on it to make it bigger. But that's a pretty big impact. You'll notice a huge difference in damage when you start spamming that. And then also, that's going to be what you're going to use to get your fusion bar up as well, because it's your only elemental skill. Everything else is not an elemental skill. Then we've also got our marking skill that's going to mark our targets, and the more targets you can include in that circle of effect, the more boost you get for double damage. So we want it to use it as often as possible with cooldown and extended duration and with area of effect. We've got Stone Skin for a 70% damage reduction. Again, you want to use it as often as possible, extended duration and cooldown. Now the next one is a triggered spell, and I know that I'm not using a shield right now, but there are times where I pull out a shield and I don't want to switch all my skills around. So in times where it's a little bit tough, like when you summon your overload diamonds or maybe a tough boss and you want to use that shield, when you get damaged, trigger on damage and use the Aegis buff, which will give you another almost 20% spell block and block chance from your shield. And then we want to use that as often as possible with cooldown and as long as possible with extended duration. So need about 300 energy for this. And then we want to add on some fire damage as well. It does a little more than the cold damage boost. And then we want to add on our elemental damage. That's going to tie up almost all of our mana, but we'll get to what we do about that in a little while when we get to our packs and our gear, because that's going to solve our mana problems. And we don't use a lot of mana with this build. It's all pretty low mana stuff, so that's good. Now let's get into our talent trees and see what's going on there. We're going to start with the God of War, not with the Goddess of Knowledge. And here we're going to go for straight damage. We're just going to go for all of the damage and all of the fire that we can get. And that's pretty much it, aside from getting some critical on here. We want critical because one of our nodes that we get later on relies on critical. So we get some critical, and we get some fire damage, and we get some straight damage, and that's all we worry about on this whole tree. That should get you to 20 points pretty easily. And then for our major nodes, we're going to pick the first skill is going to be tenacity. You want to build up as much tenacity as possible, and we'll see why in just a few moments. So the first node we're going to pick is going to be tenacity. And we want to build those stacks of tenacity as high as possible. And then the second one we're going to pick is going to be straight up power. You're going to get your strength up to about 500-600 with this build, so you should be getting 180 to 200% extra damage with that. And so that's all going to turn into elemental damage as well. Now with this tree, it's the one-handed tree. We're going to go with straight damage and armor on this tree all over the place. So we got straight damage, we got armor. I did not go with the fourth capstone on this armor because there's a whole lot of armor at the bottom right of this tree that we're going to get. Now we're going to get into our tenacity here, and we're going to start to see why we get this tenacity on this tree. So we get some tenacity, we get some more tenacity, and then we get the capstone of tenacity. And that capstone of tenacity is going to give us 4% armor boost per stack of tenacity. And since we're getting so much armor, we're going to get a big boost out of that 4%. We also got some critical strike up in here, so that's good. We need that critical. We got all of the armor bonuses that we can get down here on the bottom right. And of special note is the capstone on the bottom right, which will give you erosion percentage resistance. And that should give you a pretty good chunk because your strength is so high. We also got some strength and some percentage strength, so that's helpful. We want to go up to our shields now. Our tenacity blessing is going to give us 20% per stack. So that's a huge bonus to our shields right there. So that's where the tenacity blessing comes in, is giving us those 20%. And here's the real one. Physical damage, half of elemental damage is going to be converted to physical. So half that elemental damage that whoops on you so bad is going to be converted and go to your armor. On top of that, you're going to be getting armor for your you're going to be getting extra armor based on your strength. So you're going to be getting a bunch of extra armor as well. It is a chance to deal double armor. So on top of that node that we got that deals 30% chance to deal extra double armor, you should be getting around 80 to 90% chance to do double armor. So that's, I've got about 28,000 armor, I think, maybe 24. So that puts you around 50,000 armor. Next, we're going to go to a caster tree. Because it's all about the elemental damage and the channeling damage, which is whirlwind. So we buy up the channeling damage and the elemental damage, which double dips for Gemma again into fire and ice. And we get some other spellcasting abilities as well that are going to help us. Some ailment procs are going to help us with the ignites and the frostbites, which are important for her hero trait. There's some more extra damage, elemental. Here's some more. We pick up some of that casting speed up there at the top. We pick up some elemental damage here at the bottom. Some more of the same stuff we've been picking up in general. Now here we're going to get some a big one, which is that criticals. That's why we've been building criticals, because now they're going to bypass resistance, all resistances. Doesn't matter that they're resistant. And here we get a big boost to damage based on our ailments. So ailments are going to give us big boosts to damage and a big boost to percentage of chance for ailments. So that's really good. If we get into our packs, I got some damage on the right side. It's always good to get those damage bonuses. Got some icing on the cake with some rarities for items and drops. You know, we always want more loot, right? There's never enough. But the meat of it is the mana percentages. There's 6 nodes on the left there that total up to 200% mana regen. And you need that because whirlwind is just constantly eating your mana, and you've got most of it tied up in passives. So you need that mana regen in your packs and on your items. And there's some extra critical damage on there, never hurt anybody. But aside from that mana regen, the rest is up to you. Damage is always good to have. Now for her hero traits, the first one is going to give us bonuses to just 2 stacks of bonus elemental damage, so that's good. The next one is going to give us ailments, likelihoods, and damages. And also, it's going to give us 2% life every time we kill a frozen enemy. So that's going to proc a lot with our weapon. We also have ice to fire, fire to ice. And in our last one, we're going to pick the one that fire can do our ice ailment and ice can do our fire ailment, so that we're just getting ailments all over the place, ailment city. And that combined with the second one means that we're going to be getting lots of extra damage and lots of extra healing from those ailments going off. Now for gear, there is two pieces of gear. They're very cheap in the store. You can even get them for flame sand at times. Just keep looking in the store. I got mine for flame sand before I could even get elementium, so don't feel bad. But this ice hammer is the bomb. It converts your physical damage to ice damage. So all those fire bonuses from the warrior tree are going to apply to this ice damage. And then if you're wielding two of them, you just converted all of your damage to ice damage, all of Gemma's bonuses, all of the ailments, all of everything just stacks and stacks all together into this ice damage. And it's a glorious, glorious thing. And then I got armor on everything. You can see armor on everything. Anywhere we can, we've got mana and mana regen, elemental damages. We've got there, fill in your gaps as you can, best you can. Make resistances you want high. You know the drill. It's not uber gear. Just fill in the holes as best you can. But armor is key. Energy, of course, so you can put more spells. And those two ice hammers are key, or an ice hammer and a really good armor shield is also a good pick there. And you can see on our stats we have very high strength, not so much on life, so you got to be careful. And not so much on, not a ton on mana, so you got to be careful there with getting those mana regens on your items. If we go down to our criticals, we're running a decent chance of criticals because we're hitting so often with whirlwind. And our ailment damage is also hitting often. We got 200% damage, a little over, close to 250, so that's not bad. You can always throw that critical damage on as one of your add-ons to whirlwind itself. Sacrifice a little damage for some more crit damage. When we go to armor, though, you can see we have crazy, crazy armor. Nearing 30,000 armor, and that is doubled on almost every hit because we've got that 80 to 90%. So that's pretty much it, how to build a whirling dervish of a Gemma. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at shoelessrob, hashtag 8331, capital S and R in Discord. And peace out. Have fun with Gemma and her hammers.